How can a nation, one with such a rich heritage and obvious potential, find itself seemingly stuck, unable to translate all that into real improvements for its people? What is it that truly shapes a country's path? Is it culture, resources, or maybe something deeper in the societal fabric?
That's exactly the puzzle we're trying to piece together today. We're diving deep into, well, the really critical roles politics and education play, how they can either build a country up or sometimes, sadly, contribute to its troubles.
Okay.
And we're pulling these insights from a pretty detailed analysis published by a major Nepali news portal. It gives a stark view, but honestly, the lessons feel quite universal.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to really pull out the key takeaways from this source. We want to understand the challenges, sure, but also maybe see some potential paths forward for societal change. And like you said, while Nepal's the focus, these patterns, these dilemmas, they could apply to almost any nation facing similar hurdles, couldn't they?
Absolutely. It's surprisingly relevant across different contexts.
So let's get into it. The analysis kicks off by painting this really vivid picture of Nepal's identity. Rich, unique.
Yeah, it describes it as, multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, incredible geographical diversity, too.
And globally known, right? Mount Everest, birthplace of Gautama Buddha, Sita Mata, land of temples like Pashupatinath. Plus, it mentions the brave Gorkhali ancestors, how they kept the nation independent during the whole colonial era, which is pretty remarkable.
It is. But what's fascinating and kind of jarring is how the source then contrasts this proud history. Contrasts it sharply with the observation that despite all these struggles for rights over the years, the repeated political shifts just haven't delivered the expected improvements for ordinary people. The analysis kind of suggests that outside influences often kept these changes superficial, more like power transfers than real deep societal transformation.
Yeah, that's a really powerful point. Does the source dig into why these big political parties, the Congress, UML, Maoists mentioned here, but it could be parties anywhere, really why they seem to falter after gaining power? They rally support, make big promises, but then struggle to deliver. The source notes this pattern of, only engaging in popular stuff when they're out of government.
It does touch on that, yeah. And it leads right into a central argument that the core ideals of a democratic republic, rule of law, good governance, social justice, inclusivity, these things just aren't being put into practice.
So they exist on paper, but not in reality.
Pretty much. They remain aspirations, not the lived experience for most citizens.
Okay, so if those ideals aren't being met, what's the reality of governance, according to this report? It says the republic is caught in distortions.
Yes, that's the term used. It points to a real lack of transparency, accountability, impartiality. And the author argues this has basically pushed the nation into a crisis.
And what does that crisis look like on the ground?
Well, the issues described are, frankly, quite pervasive. Constant reports of serious crimes, murder, violence, corruption, rape. But the really disturbing part is this trend where perpetrators seem to be protected, shielded somehow, instead of facing justice. And even when the public and media are highly critical, voice strong objections, the analysis suggests it's often just ignored by those in power.
Wow. And it gets worse, doesn't it? The source claims people in power actively try to manipulate the law, using their networks, nepotism, favoritism.
Exactly. Factionalism, too. The author calls it a looting system, a leader system. There's talk of sycophancy and even, quite alarmingly, a kind of neo-slavery reappearing.
Oh, no, slavery. In the name of a republic. That sounds incredibly bleak. It suggests more than just corruption, right? It points to a systemic breakdown where the system exploits rather than serves.
It really does. It speaks to a loss of autonomy, even within a supposedly free system. And to make it concrete, the source brings up a specific event, the 3Kun incident. It sounds like one of those flashpoints that really shakes public trust, something we see happen globally, unfortunately.
What happened there?
The details are grim. Hundreds of aerial shots fired, excessive tear gas, indiscriminate bullets hitting civilians. 2 deaths, hundreds injured. But crucially, the public widely distrusted the official story from the security forces afterwards. That kind of breakdown in trust is just corrosive.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's something I found really insightful. The source points out this paradox. The very parties championing democracy often lack it internally. Things like overdue conventions, unfair leadership contests, basically no real internal democracy. It's a challenge you see elsewhere too, isn't it? How do parties practice what they preach?
Precisely. And this internal authoritarian streak, as the source describes it, has knock-on effects. Older leaders cling to power, blocking capable younger people. And if young leaders do push for reform or suggest a leadership change, they face, and this is a direct quote, career annihilation. It's a system that resists change from within.
So, with that political backdrop, it makes you wonder about the foundations. What does this mean for education? The source makes a pretty bold claim here, doesn't it? That the main reason for the lack of progress, political, social, economic, educational, lies within the education system itself.
It's a huge claim, but central to the analysis. It argues that political interference, these distortions, opportunism, they're actively holding the education sector back. And it really elevates the teaching profession, calls teachers the birth giver of all other professions, leaders, doctors, engineers, everyone. They're seen as the absolute bedrock of national development.
The bedrock, yet under siege, it sounds like. What specific problems does the source identify in education? You mentioned political interference.
Yes, pervasive interference and favoritism, from local schools right up to universities. The state's attitude is described as neglectful, even disrespectful towards teachers.
And how does that political meddling actually play out? What does it affect?
Well, quite directly, the analysis talks about politically connected people getting prioritized for roles over qualified, dedicated teachers. And it's not just jobs. It affects university appointments, who get scholarships, even what's in the curriculum. All of this just chips away at educational quality.
And then there's the issue of teachers themselves being politically active or affiliated. The source seems particularly concerned about this.
Extremely concerned, because, as the analysis explains it, this forces teachers to prioritize party loyalty over good teaching, over their students' futures. They become, in the source's striking phrase, victims of unannounced neo-slavery. Their professional independence is compromised. They serve political masters, not just education.
Wow, unannounced neo-slavery. That implies a real loss of agency for teachers.
Exactly. And this moral decline, teachers not being independent or impartial, is seen as a direct contributor to the broader systemic breakdown. It means the people they educate, the future human resources, might lack morals, honesty, responsibility. The source is blunt. The root of systemic decay lies in the moral decline of teachers.
And it goes further, saying teachers are actually imposing ideologies in classrooms, getting students involved in politics.
That's what's reported, yes. Motivating students to join party organizations, influencing them with superficial ideas, essentially bringing them under political control early on. And the author draws a direct line from this to bad governance, injustice, disorder, the whole crisis gripping the nation. It shows how deeply education and politics are tangled.
So given that diagnosis, what's the prescription? What's the path forward according to this analysis?
Well, it places a huge weight on teachers themselves. It calls for deep self-reflection, correcting past mistakes, and acting as truly impartial, independent, honest educators, completely free from political influence. That's presented as non-negotiable for any kind of national renewal.
It makes sense. They need to guide students, right, towards using knowledge, science, critical thinking, learning to analyze, tell right from wrong, and stand up for what's correct. The goal being fostering citizens who are fearless, discerning, independent, honest. That's the ideal outcome.
That's the ideal. And to help make that happen, the source offers a specific legal suggestion.
Oh.
Yeah, it proposes a law to basically ban political party-affiliated groups within professions like teaching. The idea is that one single common trade union should be enough to advocate for professional rights without the political partisanship muddying the waters.
Interesting. Cut the direct party ties within the profession itself.
Exactly.
So the core message really boils down to this. If you want a healthy democracy, a functioning republic, you have to start with fundamental reform of the teachers. The logic being, if teachers improve, become more moral and capable, that will ripple outwards. It will produce better citizens in all fields, strengthening the nation from the ground up.
That's the essence of it.
No.
A powerful argument about starting at the source.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've really traced this profound, almost symbiotic link between a nation's political health and its education system, all through the lens of this source material. It's clear how failures in one sphere just drag the other down, creating these systemic loops that are hard to break.
It really is interconnected, and it leaves us with a rather challenging question, doesn't it? Considering how deep this political influence runs and how compromised these foundational institutions like education seem to be, what does it truly mean for all of us as individuals and as a society when the very birth givers of all professions, the teachers, are caught in what the source calls this unannounced neo-slavery? What responsibility does that place on every single one of us to demand independence, demand integrity in education, not just for its own sake, but for the entire nation's future prosperity? Because it seems clear, a nation's future really is shaped in its classrooms.